Hey everyone! In this video we're going to look at how you can 3D model a Lego piece. We've done 3D models in the past, but we haven't paid too much attention to their real-life measurements. We've done it sort of artistically. But now I want to challenge you to think about this 3D model as an engineer. We want something to be the exact right size. Legos are something you've probably interacted with that need to be a very exact size. If they are not the right size, the grip on other Lego pieces will be too loose or too tight, and they just won't work in the way that they're supposed to. If we were to take a more serious example, if someone were working on airplanes or rocket ships or things like that, it would be extremely important that the pieces are the right size. And so we're going to use a tool called a caliper. And it looks like this. I'm going to kind of give you a tour of it on this picture here, so it shows up a little better than holding one up to the camera. At first you'll want to turn it on with the power button here, and it should display a measurement on here. It might be in inches or millimeters, and you can switch what it's measuring in by pressing this button at the top here. First thing you'll want to check is that it is zeroed correctly, meaning that when it's completely closed, these two big claws here, you'll want to close it completely. You can do that by rolling this wheel here until these jaws close. You want it to display 0. We're measuring how far apart these two claws are, and we want it to say 0 when it's completely closed. If it doesn't say 0 when it's completely closed, we want to press the 0 button to make sure that it is zeroed or calibrated correctly. This might be familiar to you if you've used scales in science and you want the scale to say 0 when nothing's on it. Second thing to know about this tool is that it's actually set up to measure 3 things at once. You can put things between these two claws and measure them. And that measurement is actually the same as if you were to measure between these two claws. Notice the difference here. This is measuring from the outside of this claw to the outside of this claw, while on this side it's from inside to inside. This is good for measuring the outside of things. This is good for measuring the inside of things. If you were measuring like the underside of a Lego brick and trying to figure out how wide that was, these internal jaws here work great for that. There's actually a third piece that's measuring too, and it's this little metal stick that comes out the end, and it's great for measuring the depth of things. So if you turn the Lego piece upside down and look at the kind of holes in it and you want to know how deep those are, the length that this metal stick is protruding from the device is also the same as these two measurements. So this screen is actually giving you a measurement of 3 different spots on this. I like to use millimeters in this project. If you're a scientist or engineer, you're often going to be using the metric system. And just so we're kind of aware of what that is and what that looks like, when we're taking measurements like this, we want to have an idea of how big things are, just as a quick mental check of, does that make sense? Am I measuring correctly? So let me switch my screen over to this and hold a ruler up to the screen here. I've got a ruler here, and on the top we're looking at inches, on the bottom we're looking at centimeters. If I go all the way to the end here, you'll see on the bottom where I'm measuring in centimeters, the big numbers are the centimeters, the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, and 6, but each little line in between is a millimeter. There are 10 of them in every centimeter. So if you were to guess the height of a standard Lego brick, like this, it might be reasonable to think that it looks like it's about 10 millimeters tall. So if you're not getting something close to that on your caliper, you might want to think about what could maybe be going wrong. Is it not zeroed correctly? Are you measuring it incorrectly? If I were to hold this up to here, up to this little ruler, and look at it, the height of my Lego brick in millimeters is right around 10. We can get very exact with our calipers. That's what's really nice. We don't have to squint and look at these tiny little lines. They're a great tool for engineers. So let's go back to the screen here. And I'm going to open up 3D Builder. I'm going to choose a new scene here. And first thing I want to do is make sure that I'm measuring in the correct units in 3D Builder. If you look at the ground here on mine, it's measuring in millimeters. That's great, but I've already set it up. Yours might not be like this. I'm going to go to the 3 lines, Settings. You'll see mine set to millimeters. Yours might be on feet or inches or any one of these things. I recommend millimeters, although it is possible to also measure in inches on your caliper, and so that's okay too. You just have to be consistent and measure in the same units the whole time. If you measure in different units, that mistake happened to NASA and they crashed a $1 billion probe, so don't waste $1 billion, please. Okay, so I've done some measurements on this Lego brick before I started this video. It's just a standard Lego brick. For your assignment, I challenge you to pick a more complicated brick than this. This is actually a fairly easy one for your guys' skill level. Try something with some curves, maybe a minifigure or a more complicated piece, but in this example I'll just kind of start showing you this basic block. So let's start with a cube, and I'm not going to be doing the usual sort of stretching with my mouse here. I'm actually going to be more precise than that. I'm going to come down here and change these numbers by actually typing in the numbers that I want. And so from my measurements, I've found that one dimension of my brick is 15.5 millimeters. Make sure you remember to hit accept. Another dimension of it is 31.5. And the height of my brick is 9.5 millimeters. And if I look at this, the proportions are already looking pretty good as to what a Lego brick might look like. You might notice that if you're changing numbers here, that other numbers are changing with it. If you notice that problem, it's probably because your lock tool is on, which keeps the proportions the same. So if I were to try and change a number here to say 30, it would actually just change all of them to scale that up to 30. You'll notice my other two numbers changed here too, and that's probably not what you wanted. So I'll Control Z to undo that. Another tool that we might find handy here is under the object menu there's a measure tool, and we can use this to measure the distance between 2 points. And you always want to check your view and make sure that what you're actually seeing is what you want to measure. And I'm seeing that mine is 31.5 millimeters. That's exactly what I set it to and what I wanted it to be. That's great. Let me show you an easy mistake to make here though. Let's say I'm clicking here and, oh, I think I'm clicking about on the edge, but you'll notice it's a little bit off, and I'm actually measuring when I change the view way down there. So be very careful with that measure tool. Check your views to see what you've got there. Okay, let's go ahead and cancel that. I'm going to pause it and take a couple more measurements to get one of the studs on top of this brick here. Okay, I've taken some measurements. I think I'm ready to make one of the studs on the top, and I bring it out. It's way too big. I'm going to start with the cylinder, of course. That would be the closest shape to what I want. Let's start by making this 4.5 millimeters, which is what I measured. And it's all stretched out. I want to make the other dimension also 4.5. And now it's way too tall. measured this to be 2 millimeters. If I move this up, this is actually looking pretty good for the size of a Lego stud. Now, we've reached a portion here where you might not be sure quite how to line these things up. When we're trying to measure the distance between things, we can't just type it in here. There's no way to do that in this program. So what I would recommend is actually using other pieces temporarily to space things apart. So let's copy and paste this stud and put them on the brick here. And now I'm trying to figure out how far apart to put these two things. And I can't type anything in to get that distance. I just need to sort of slide them around with this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my Lego brick and I'm going to measure the distance in between those studs. So I'll go do that. Okay, I've measured my distance and found out that it is 3 millimeters. So I'm going to bring out, I could use a cylinder, I could use a cube. I think I'll do a cube. It's just going to be easier to line up along those straight edges. And I'm going to set this to 3 millimeters, this to 3 millimeters, and this. Oh, easy mistake to make here. I was moving it by 3 millimeters. I want to make sure I'm on scale when I'm doing this. So down to 3, down to 3, and doesn't matter how tall it is, we're just using it as a spacer for now. So now I can slide this here and put this in between the two studs. And I know they've got to be that far apart. Now this is going to demand that I make a few spacers. I'm going to need spacers on all sides to get this exactly right. But just to sort of illustrate the concept here, I will move these so they're at least, oops, I've got them both selected there. Control D to deselect. Move this right there. It actually kind of snaps up against it, which is nice. Helps me position it correctly. And there we go. They're 3 millimeters apart. And I can delete this block. They're at least the right distance apart there. They may not yet be the right distance from these edges here. Let's look at one more thing here. We're well on our way to making a nice Lego brick. We do have quite a bit of work to do on the underside, though. I'll let you guys do that. But I want to show you one more thing in our tutorial here. You might know that Lego bricks have the little Lego word on the top of each stud, and that might be kind of a nice touch to make on our model. I'll click on one of the studs, go to the Edit menu, and select Emboss, and then I can put some text on here. Let's do Lego. I might change the font if I can find a more appropriate font that fits. But for now I'll do something like that and click Emboss, and now it's got this nice little Lego sticking out of it there. Alright, you guys, good luck. Choose a challenging piece that will stretch your skills and teach you something new. Hope you have some fun with it. Thanks for watching.